Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. One of the cool things I get to do here is interview some of the best minds, best thinkers, best leaders in dentistry, and ask them, what's your secret? Like, what have you applied to your practice, your life, and your personal life that's made a big difference? And so today on the podcast, I have Dr. Kevin Groth, and he's back, and he's made some huge changes with one concept in the last 6 months. And he shares how that has happened in his life. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. The coolest thing I get to do is hang out with great minds in dentistry, and they become great friends, and I get to ask them great questions, and they give us great wisdom. So no pressure here, brother. And we have Dr. Kevin Groth in the house, one of our favorite clients of all time, one of my dear friends, and you have not only stepped up as a leader, but it's really fun to watch how you've grown and developed and evolved as a human being, as a dentist, as an entrepreneur. And you're here for the To the Top Study Club tomorrow.
I'm back.
Yes.
Good to be back.
So we're having a beer. We're going to go to the dinner tonight. Mm-hmm. And I always love having a conversation with you about anything. And today you came up with this idea for today, because really, here's what happens as entrepreneurs. Tomorrow, we're going to sit in this room and you're going to get a chance to learn from other leaders, and you're going to actually share your learning. And you can see people evolve. They grow. Their mindset changes. How they do things changes. And that's one of the cool things is you get to learn collectively from all of these people. And so the listeners of the podcast are going to get a little sample of that from you today.
It's good to be here. I love the To the Top seminar, and I think it's something that we started with Inner Circle a long time ago.
Right.
And it's just evolved into this like great community of people that we can just share and experience. And what you realize is everybody goes through similar things. It's just we all have different messages and we learn from each other.
Right. So let's start here. So if people have been listening to the podcast for a long time, they know who you are. Mm-hmm. But if they don't, who's Dr. Kevin Groth?
I'm a restorative dentist out of Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
In Metro Detroit, so not really actually inner city, but it's something that I've come to really love this profession. I've had my ups and downs, and it's a huge honor to be sitting here sharing my story. If I can inspire one person in this thing, it's worth it. And I love when I see these things unfold and I get contact from people on email or Instagram or text message, and it's just like, cool. I had no idea I would ever get in touch with these people, but it's one of my favorite things doing these podcasts because without a doubt somebody reaches out, and I think it's so cool that my message, which is pretty unoriginal and nothing crazy, it reaches out and touches people to some level that they can make change.
Right. Well, you're built with a teacher's heart. You've always been like it's one of your passions. It's just to share knowledge and pass it along type of a thing. So take us through the evolution. So before we get into what's the biggest change that you've made in the last 6 months, but give us a little bit of prior to 6 months.
Yeah, I think I went through a huge change, in the last 3 years where, I had this thriving practice and everything's going great. I had an associate that was working out, and we had another doctor, and it just kind of completely collapsed on me.
Why?
A lot of reasons. And I think I'm still figuring those things out. And I think the big thing is there were a lot of things that I didn't realize I was doing or I was not in control of. And it led to the fallout, but I now see it. And there's certain things that happen in life. Like even, I don't know if you watch The Bear. TV
no,
show,
I don't.
The Bear. It's a good show. And there's a chef and he's awesome. And he has another side chef.
Is it the guy in Chicago?
Yeah.
Have you seen that, Andy? No, you haven't.
Great
seen
show.
It. Okay, yeah.
Great show. But he has a side chef that works just alongside of him.
Okay.
And he gets all the fame and recognition, but she's doing just as much work. And it's one of those things that hit me right in the middle of the episode, being like, holy crap. I get it, because here I was listed as Benko's 40 under 40.
Right.
And I was working with another dentist, and she was supporting our office just as much, if not more, on many days that I was there and not there. And it is a recognition of those things that as life keeps unfolding, it's just those little like glimmers or hints that you're just like, oh, okay, I understand this now. But everything fell apart.
Yeah.
She bought a practice, and I'm proud of her for that. Betting on your own self. I'm a big proponent of that, but I wasn't prepared for it.
Right.
And I think that was my naive nature of, I was invincible.
Yeah.
And when you're invincible, it's just only a matter of time before things fall out.
Right.
And it did, and it hit me hard. And it hit me at a time in my life where we were building a new house, and that was expensive if you've ever built a house. And on top of that, now I have no other doctor to support our practice. I'm supposed to support a 2-doctor practice with the overhead of a 2-doctor practice. And I'm supposed to produce like a 2-doctor practice on my own because I was in no emotional capacity to take on another associate at the time.
Right.
And I had a newborn baby, so my second kid, and it totally drained me. And I've been very open about that. As much as you just keep working and trying your best, it's going to exhaust you at some level.
Yeah.
And when you're running on fumes, that leads to burnout. And if you keep going down without making changes to burnout, it's going to lead to depression. And by depression, I'm meaning it's just are kind of numbed everything. And coming home, and my wife's like, how's work? And I'm like, it was okay. But I was meeting 2 patients an hour during the 3 hygiene visits that we had because I'd never met those patients before because they were hers. And I dropped Delta Dental, and I'm having dialogues with those people. So I'm having constant dialogues all day long with people, and it's draining me like crazy. And then I go home and I'm given a baby.
Yeah.
And it's just, at one point my wife looked at me while my son's crying and said, are you enjoying him? And we both knew the answer was no. And it was the most heartbreaking thing in my entire parenthood.
Yeah.
Is that like, here I have his newborn. It's a special time, and I hated his infancy. Not because of him.
Right.
It's because my life wasn't allowing me to enjoy those moments.
So take us through the next chapter. What happened after?
Yeah.
As you're going through that.
And you've witnessed all of it.
Right.
We have these weekly calls.
Mm-hmm.
I'm privileged in the sense that you pick up the phone every week and we talk. And you saw how I evolved into like a kind of a darker place. And you just kind of sat with me. And I had people like you, people like Zach, people like my wife that could help pick me up. And when no one like wanted to grab me and pull me out of it, you all just kind of recognized that this is something that I needed to almost go through. And that's the thing I kind of came around to, is that life happens for you.
Well, I think you said this, like you got to sit and suck for a little bit, and figure out why. And from there you get some clarity.
I'm a whole different person.
Why?
And I'm proud of that. Because I've done the work where I've made changes in my life. I now recognize how much I needed to change, how much I needed to evolve. I'm a softer, more gentle, more humble, more compassionate, more empathetic person. And that's what the world needs right now. And I'm gentler with my patients. I'm gentler with my team. I'm better as a parent. I'm better as a husband. I'm better as a friend. There's so many things that happen in life that I'm just like, wow, I'm so proud of the fact that I fell.
Yeah.
And I would do it all over again. And I'm not ashamed to say that I went through depression. I'm not ashamed to say I had burnout. I'm not ashamed that I had financial issues. I'm not ashamed to say that I wasn't the best husband. I wasn't the best parent. And I'm certainly not the best son and friend, and you name it. Like insert the narrative there, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the best version for myself either. And that was a big thing too. And I think all of a sudden it just became one of those moments where I just had to start making some little changes. And those little dials that you start tweaking here, had a magnification of an effect that all of a sudden my life became easier. And it wasn't like I did anything crazy.
Right.
It's just, it's how you think sometimes, right? And I think I ultimately then became more positive. I said, I'm never going to go negative. I'm going to find the positive in every single moment. I have a bad patient. Fine. Find the positive. I have a bad circumstance with my son right now, or daughter, or whatever parenting thing it is. Find the positive. Turn it around. And that consistency of which I started thinking changed everything for me. And then I started realizing life is just supposed to happen that way.
Yeah.
You're supposed to go through some tough times. You're supposed to have some hardship because it gives you a lesson or a sense of wisdom in the future that you didn't realize you needed.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at now.
So take us up to that point. And then and lead us into what the biggest change was. Where did it happen? What was the conversation?
I was doing dishes.
Okay.
I like doing dishes. because I can't be distracted.
You like doing dishes?
I like doing dishes. I'm like your son. And I was a 16-year-old that hated dishes too. So it's kind of ironic now that I'm telling everyone I like dishes.
Behind the scenes, I was explaining to Kevin, like, I'm trying to help my son understand how to do dishes.
Yeah. But it's a very cleansing, I mean, physically you're cleaning dishes, but your mindset is getting away from everything that's cluttering and you're just kind of able to process things.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that allowed me to process the things I had to do. I had to make amends with certain people. I had to get past that guilty conscience. I had to rectify or formulate a plan that was best for me. I had to cut people out of my life. I had to add certain things to my life. And in that process, it's just simplifying everything.
Yeah.
That's all it became. It was just like, is this a good thing or is this not a good thing? And anything that wasn't a good thing, I tried my best just to weed it out.
Right.
And you're amazed how like much lighter things get when that happens, right? So ultimately it led to coming back here 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I was a totally different person than I was 2 years prior to that. And I was so proud of that. And so we're meeting at this To the Top meeting. And I think the biggest takeaway from that came from when you were up there and you said like the best leaders are the ones that have the most consistency.
Yeah.
And clarity behind the message of which they're trying to forecast for a vision.
Yeah, and I'll add some context to that. So it's a Jim Collins quote that I love very much. And he has said it many times. The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency. And so you're describing like my biggest challenge prior to learning that is I was inconsistent. And I think you wear it as a badge of honor. Like I am inconsistent. I love chaos. I love creativity. I love ideas. I love bringing energy. And what I didn't know was it had the opposite effect I thought it was bringing. So whether it be with my team, whether it be with Sarah, my wife, whether it be with my kids, I thought inconsistency was like brilliant, but it's not, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not. And so in that meeting, my wife was here and she leaned over and said, yeah, you aren't consistent with anything. So I think that really is something you need to work on the next 6 months.
Yeah. So
I did.
Yeah. You know, have I shared this with you? Never question your wife's judgment.
Never.
She married you.
There you go.
So I heard that years ago. Somebody said, Kirk, don't ever question Sarah's judgment. She married you.
There we go.
I'm like, okay.
Got it.
And so every once in a while, your wife will give you some wisdom or your significant other. And I think it's powerful because they're closest to us. They can see what we're struggling with.
Yeah. She walks this journey with me every day.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that because she's the best person to take everything that comes out of my brain and focus it to some level. And then
okay, go back to that moment. So so when your spouse, your wife is amazing and she gave you that information, how did you react to it? Did you go absolutely, or did you go, wait a minute? Okay, what are you really trying to say?
I will never take anything my wife says defensively.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing for anybody to give you the gift of a criticism. Whether you like to hear it or not is a whole different thing, but like they're sharing something that is highly reflective of how you're coming across.
Right.
And I mean, I worked with a therapist for a long time for personal development, and he talked about how it's important for other people outside of you to share what they feel from you and what they see from you, because you would never know what you look like if you didn't have a reflection in a mirror.
Right.
So you need somebody to tell you how you are internally on the outside. And so for me, she has 100% purpose or directive to tell me how I come across and how I need to improve. And sometimes I don't want to hear it.
Right. So how did you use that information?
Yeah. So we sat down afterwards in the airport, started thinking of ideas of, okay, what do we need next?
At the Milwaukee airport?
MKE.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, because that's the nice thing about getting away.
Right.
I'm here. I'm away from my practice. I'm away from my family. I'm giving my time to sit here. And I've literally started working on my next 6 months already before we're having this podcast. And it's something that I'm channeling these ideas and this slow nature of where do I want to go? And having that time away is a really important thing because it gives you the clarity break you deserve.
Yeah.
Because if you're just constantly in that hamster wheel, it's never going to get done.
What? Webinars don't do it?
No.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
So
I think you got to give yourself a permission to go somewhere where you feel energized and you can pay attention and you can lean in.
Oh yeah. And it's hard. It's hard. I mean, you saw my daughter on the FaceTime. She was crying because I wasn't home.
Yeah.
And that happens almost every time I leave. So you have to be very selective of the times you go and why you're going.
Right.
I needed this. I need to go away in order to get a sense of where I need to go for myself and my business and all different aspects.
Right. So take us through the treatment plan in the airport, in MKE.
One of the easiest things I could implement is more consistent meetings.
Okay.
And I wasn't having meetings for a while. And you knew that.
Why didn't you have meetings?
Because I felt like 1, I had a great team. 2, we had a great office. And 3, I didn't want to use the time because we needed to see the patient base. So blocking out the hour once a week became kind of like a waste of time because we didn't have a structure or consistency to the meetings themselves. So it's just kind of like, let's just sit down and let's have a birthday lunch for the hygienist that had her birthday that week. Or let's sit down and let's just kind of like talk about the patients that we saw that day.
Right.
And it wasn't anything that was really productive because it wasn't going anywhere and there was no consistency, which we led that meeting and we didn't have a directive going forward. So it just kind of fell flat. And I think my practice kind of fell flat because I stopped having consistent meetings. I did that when I was a client. I had meetings 2 hours a week. Every week for 2 years. And we grew immensely. We changed a lot of things. We did all these awesome things. And it's because we took the time to devote to it and we had a structure of how we were going to do it. Right.
Well, don't you think it's a natural phenomenon where you get busy, things start happening. You look at your schedule. You're like, I got a lot going on. There's some exciting stuff going on. I got this. My team is great. They trust me. We trust each other. We don't need to meet. And then 1 week goes by, then a second week goes by, then a third week goes by, and then you just feel something's off.
For sure.
It's kind of like, being married to your spouse going, we don't need date night. We're just chasing our kids everywhere. We're good. And then you go, what in the world is going on here? Type of a thing. Would you agree?
It's all about love. Loving somebody isn't just having a wedding ring on your hand.
Yeah.
It's what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And how you commit to that person. And I mean, for me, I do little gestures. I make my wife coffee every single day. And I write notes when I don't see her in the morning, and I write notes for my kids just so they know I love them.
Yeah.
But it also carries forward to how I love my team.
Right.
I love every single person on my team. And I've talked to other dentists that they say, you actually tell them you love them? Like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because what if you have to fire them? And I said, well, if I don't love them, they're not going to be working for me.
Right.
It's a core value for us is team love. And how do I express my love for those people that work with me on a daily basis? And when you don't have those meetings, you're not allowing yourself the time to love each other.
Yeah.
Because you're just going through the rut of the day, seeing X number of patients a day, and the hygienists are seeing X number of patients, and the front desk is doing all the stuff they do. And you lose the intimate nature of which you connect.
Yeah.
And it's all about connecting.
Yeah.
No matter what job you are in, no matter what profession, whatever life thing you're going through, it's all about, goes back to connection. If you're not connecting with people, it's never going to work out.
I agree. I totally agree. So one thing that was that needed to be more consistent was your team meetings.
Yeah.
Take us through the next layer of consistency.
So with the meeting structure, it became one of those things. You gave me the template, and have the action items and having the goals and having the forecasting of KPIs or the metrics you want to track. And, I took it and I used my own way through it. I kind of initially used the template and it kind of worked for me. And then eventually it just kind of became one of those things that we're still evolving with it. But for now, it's kind of been here's the forecast of where we want to go. And here are the action items we need to take in order to get there. Less focus on the numbers, because I think if you actually turn those little if you're focusing so much on what you collect, produce, write off.
Totally.
It loses the nature of why you're doing it.
Right.
But there's so many underlying things that you do to support those big numbers. And that's like the leading lagging indicators, right?
Right.
So if you're looking at those lagging indicators, which are just those little things that you can twist and turn and do a little bit better here, a little bit better here, or like do these certain action items, all of a sudden things get more consistent, and things that are more consistent become more profitable.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, because everything's more consistent, it's actually just easier. And my life became a lot easier once I started having meetings, which is as crazy as it sounds. Like, that's the most consistent I've been for the last 6 months. And thoroughly enjoyed the change that's happened within our office.
I love it. I love it. One of the pushbacks we get is, well, this is kind of boring. It's kind of the same boring thing every single week. Your thoughts?
I love boring.
Well, I should, because that word does come up, and let me clarify. Sometimes the choice of word, it's repetitive.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's boring. So I think the challenge as a listener is like, I love repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
I love eating healthy regularly. I love having a regular family meal. I love having a regular team meeting. It is extremely repetitive. There's got to be something about the neuroscience of being extremely repetitive in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. That's energy.
Right.
And if you have positive energy going forward, it's going to infect everybody around you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the vibe is different.
Right.
Like literally our patients became more vocally enthused by our energy.
Right.
And every single day somebody mentions how great we are and how great our team is. And that wasn't said as often as it does now, probably a year ago.
Okay.
And that's the biggest pride for me, is knowing that energy is totally palpable. And it's felt by people that are not within the office energy they feel it.
Right.
They come in, they say, whoa, you guys are amazing.
Right.
And all they're saying is that the energy here is great.
Right.
And I mean, truly, I've had so many people say like, how are you always so happy?
Right.
They don't know my crap. They don't know what I went through. But at the same point, like, that's the best compliment, because they're like, how are you so happy? And I say, I just choose to be happy.
Right. Let me throw 2 words at you.
Yeah.
So I've watched this with my kids go through all this education. The principal at our high school uses 2 words called cognitive rigor. And so they do work hard on making sure kids use the cognitive rigor. And that sounds like it's spending a lot of energy. What consistency means for me is less cognitive rigor.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not as hard. You're not thinking about things.
Yeah.
I used to pride myself, I'm going to solve a big problem. And you actually build up this dopamine to put out these fires, and you get addicted to it. You're like, I just solved a big problem.
Get that.
And in the moment, you don't realize how destructive that is, or how counterproductive it is long term. So I've become, and I wonder how this relates to what you're doing, is like how much the repetitive nature of good processes like this really build positive neural pathways and more energy.
I can't say it any better than that.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Well, that was a question.
What's the question? It is.
It's not a question.
But ultimately, I realized when I had these action items, how responsible I was for those things.
Yeah. Now it's hard. If anybody's listening to this, don't think for a second, oh, just do what Kevin says and it's going to be easy.
It's not easy, but it's better to take action.
Totally.
And once you start taking action, you get it's like building up muscle. The more you do, the stronger you get with it. Okay,
let me ask you, I want to go in a couple realms. This is business-wise. This is your practice. What does consistency mean to you personally? Just your own personal health, whatever, and then also in your family. How'd you fill those 3 buckets?
Let me wrap up the meeting one.
Okay.
First. So I think ultimately one of the things I realized through the meeting consistency is the fact that I was very responsible for so many things.
Back up. What does that mean?
Because I have this action item list.
And you were doing it all.
I'm doing it all.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm not a micromanager. I don't like micromanaging, and I like putting my trust into people to get the things done. But I also realize that I'm not delegating enough of things for other people to do. And I'm not giving them the opportunity to thrive.
Right.
So one of the things we did last quarter was I want everyone to have a project. Come up with anything. I don't care what it is. There's no budget. Just you guys find ways in which you can make our office better. And every single person did. And it was awesome because we each had like a task list that we went through. And like, hey, how's your project today going? How's your project this quarter? What's going on status-wise? Can we support your project? And there were things of projects that I never would have done. And when it's a group effort that you have, it's so much more meaningful than it is just being on your own.
Yeah.
Because you get far more done when you give more responsibility to other people to do it. It may not be the way you do it,
right,
or want to do it, or how to do it, but eventually you get to a place that you can give up this idea that has to be on you. And I did that when I first started out in dentistry, when I took over my dad's practice, and I kind of got back in that realm, but I'm trying now going forward. And this is one of my next 6-month things, is ideas of delegating things out so I can get more time.
Okay.
And devote that time then to things that I can do that matter, that have the biggest input, and get rid of all the stuff that bog you down.
Yeah.
That's consistency now too.
Yeah. Like give our listeners an idea of what you love to delegate specifically.
We'll go through things on our meeting agenda. Like this last week, I made a really sweet album of all my cases. Done a lot of great cases the last year. And I want to put it out there, and I'm going to expensive, but I'm going to give it to my specialists. I'm going to give it to my people. I'm going to have one in every op.
Yeah.
And one of the things was I want to make sure that in that album, the people that I'm featuring are okay with me putting them out there. Now, is it worth my time to contact all those people and say, hey, can I feature you? Or could I give it to my front desk and be like, can you do this? And now that just freed up probably 3 hours of my time.
Yeah.
And a bunch of phone calls or text messages that I have to do. That's one idea. But it's just ultimately, I've come down to realize that every task that I have to do, is it mandatory that I have to do it? Or can somebody else do it? And if somebody else can do it, let's try and spread that out. And let my energy be devoted to things that I can do and only have to do.
Right.
It's a game changer.
Love it.
I'm even doing something for emails coming up. I hate emails. And I've used emails now as kind of like my to-do list.
Okay.
And you have this never-ending inbox that never gets emptied.
Right.
And it just becomes this very stressful to-do list. And so I'm reading this book called Buy Back Your Time. And a good book. I forget, Dan Markle or something. I forget his name, but Dan. And he mentions how he has an executive assistant go through his emails. And with that, he has a system, and he has all these different folders. Like the first one's everything that Dan has to do, folder number 1. And then after that is needs to respond, waiting on a response from that person, completed tasks, financial statements, whatever it comes to. It's all these different folders, and how you organize is up to you. But then essentially what I'm doing right now is I'm mimicking that job. I made the folders in my Gmail today.
Okay.
And then from there, now I'm physically putting those emails into those folders as if I was the executive assistant. And once I like that system, I've now created a job that I can hire somebody and say, hey, it's going to take you 5 hours a week, and I want you to do it this way.
Yeah.
And that's how you really learn how to evolve as an entrepreneur. Because now you're doing that E-Myth idea of you're giving up tasks to people that can do the work for you, that now frees up your time to do something else.
Yeah.
So I don't have to sit at work doing emails.
Yeah.
Doing it right now. But then you also have I created another system, and I said, I'm going to make a Google Doc of an Excel spreadsheet. And from those emails, it will be these are things that you have to respond to. Or these are things we're waiting on. And it just kind of tracks it all. It's all stored in the emails, but my inbox is literally empty right now. I don't know, it might not work.
That's
but I'm going to try and be more consistent, but I know that emails take up all my time.
Yeah.
So if I can get away from that, I can now have a physical to-do list, and I can create somebody to do some of that work for me and free up 5 of my hours a week. It's huge.
Yeah. It's a game changer.
Huge.
I was just talking to Laura this morning. There was a point I had 53,000
I remember you showed me that.
emails in my inbox.
It was right after COVID.
I think I have probably 42 today, something like that. But Laura, I will tell you, I sucked at it. Mm-hmm. I still suck at it. I can't type, I none of it makes sense. So Laura does that for me. And she's a pit bull about you need to get back to this person.
She's better at it than you are.
Oh, 100%.
And that's the point of that.
And she enjoys it.
Yeah. Find somebody to do what they like to do and take away the things that you don't like to do.
Yeah. And she'll even ask me, do you know this guy? I'm like, I don't know them,
Sure.
So take us, anything else in the practice before we go to the next bucket on consistency?
Mm-hmm. Smile at people.
Okay. You weren't smiling at people?
It's amazing how much of an effect a smile has on people.
Okay, back up. You weren't smiling, and now you're smiling.
I think I was just going through room to room to room, and I wasn't actually smiling at anybody.
Yeah.
But you'd be amazed by that smile. That energy does go to somebody, and then they it makes their day,
Right.
and they feel more comfortable with you and they like the environment, and they say like, wow, this energy is so much better.
Right.
Or whatever it comes to, they recognize it.
Right.
Smiles are good.
Now, I would say this. You're naturally a smiley person.
Sure.
I am too. What limits my smiles is too much on my plate.
That's it.
Yeah. When there's too much on my plate, it's hard. It doesn't come out naturally,
And that's what happened. So I'm seeing 3 hygiene patients an hour,
Right.
and I'm doing my own 2-3 column restorative work, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And you stop smiling. So that was one of the items on the list of the consistency is hire an associate, because I realized I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I can't consistently stay at this level and feel like it's going anywhere. I'm literally running on a hamster wheel every day.
Yeah.
So I've found an associate.
Okay. So take us through consistency in your personal life and your family life. Anything?
Yeah, personal life, it's something that it's been a big goal of mine to get in shape this year.
Yeah.
And for the first 6 months, I probably was just kind of inconsistent. And so my mentor and friend, Dr. Edwards, he recommended the associate to me. He also recommended a trainer for me. And so I've been working with him for about 6 weeks and 8 weeks. I forget what it is, but it's been great because he holds me accountable to be consistent.
Yeah.
He has a program I'm doing 4 days a week, 3 strength, 1 cardio, and then also just kind of tracking the nutrition. It's amazing how much better you feel when you start eating the same, working out the same, and also tracking sleep and tracking stress levels and having the check-ins every week with him and understanding that, there's been far from perfect weeks.
Yeah. I'm just curious how you tracking your sleep on Apple Watch, or are you doing the Aura Ring?
I'm just kind of just telling him what I'm doing.
Okay.
So I had the Aura Ring. It could work really well. I'm not opposed to any of that stuff.
Right.
The Apple Watch does help, but this one is old. Doesn't have the sleep capacity in that. But
Okay.
I just kind of know I got this many hours last night.
Yeah.
But to me, it's been fun to have the consistency and how much better you feel, and your energy has changed in all these different ways. And that's a game changer.
Yeah.
I guarantee 6 months from now, I'm going to be in a lot better shape.
Oh, 100%.
Because you keep doing the same thing, repetition wise, it's only going to matter of time before things change.
Yeah. And you're young.
Yeah.
As you get older, exercise has multiple benefits you didn't even realize. Not only is it good for the body, but it's good for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the perfect countermeasure to stress.
Totally.
It just, it's a calming thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I can't even say enough about it. I can't imagine a day without it. And there are days that I don't get it. And I'm like, I got to get back to.
Yeah. You know what's really cool?
What?
During my struggling days, I had tremendous amount of acid reflux and psoriasis.
Yeah.
And the acid reflux is essentially gone. I think sometimes if I have a couple more beers, I might get some, but I don't drink all that much anymore. And to me, the psoriasis is something I went and saw a dermatologist, and he goes, this is an autoimmune thing. You're going to have to take a bunch of meds. And I said, screw that.
Yeah.
I'm going to find my own way. And I reduced the stress levels, and I started taking care of myself better. And all of a sudden, it's minimal to nothing now.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that just as an industry, I think as dentistry, we truly try and find the holistic approach towards something as opposed to just putting out fires all the time.
Yeah.
And I think medicine, unfortunately, gets on that track of just shoving medicine at people. And I am proud of that.
Yeah.
And that's just because I was more consistent and I was more focused on something as opposed to just spinning all day long.
Okay, let me ask you a question. How old are you today?
37.
37. How many years have you been doing clinical dentistry?
11.
11. Did you ever think clinical dentistry would be as physically demanding as it is right now?
I thought it was harder. Actually, with my associate, he just got out of school.
Yeah.
And he's right now starting up his other job too in a little bit. But he and I were talking yesterday. He's like, I am so tired.
And what did you say?
I said, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
Because I remember I yawned in front of my dad when I was working, and he like ripped me apart.
Oh my.
Because he's like, you need to get more sleep. And I'm like, I swear I got more sleep. But like, I'm like, it's just kind of tiring to get used to. He's like, yeah, I know. Work is hard.
Yeah.
And it's a hard rhythm to get into. And you think that like dental school prepares you for that. But the truth is, like, I think I was far more tired when I was working right out of school. And you got to get used to that grind, right?
Yeah.
Because he's always like, I don't understand how you do this and have kids and you just kind of show up every day and you don't show any exhaustion. Like, no, you build a muscle to it.
Yeah.
And you kind of understand that this is just kind of the rhythm that you get into and said eventually you get there.
Yeah.
You can yawn in front of me. It's okay. And he's like, okay, good.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to rip you apart.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
It's fun to mentor someone like that. You know, he's a sponge. And I think it's so fun to have him around now because that, like you said, teaching's my passion. So having a sense of an extra purpose around me again, beyond just doing dentistry every day, really ignited my extra gear that I was looking for.
Yeah. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now take us to the bucket on family.
Yeah, family.
What does consistency mean?
Showing up and being there as much as physically possible.
Right.
Because I don't think you can be a good family person if you're not physically there all the time.
Right.
And to me, I think Bill Robbins said that. Right. I think he said he recognized that he was working nonstop and he wasn't a good family man, until he started separating himself from the academia and started doing his own practice. And that's the beauty of doing dentistry is that we can choose our hours.
Right.
And I elect to do 7 to 2 and 8 to 3 hours every day, 4 days a week. And I get home and I pick up my kids 3 of the 4 days a week. And
wait, you can run a practice on those hours?
I can.
Yeah.
Amazing. So we were out with my friend. He's a dentist and he works late hours. And his wife was at dinner with us and she goes, well, you understand how it is to work as a dentist. I said, huh? And Dave kind of shot down. He's like, no, this is the wrong person to say that to because he gets out at 2 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the difference you have when you have literally, 8 hours every night to do whatever you want to do. But with a family, you just need to be there. Yeah. And the more you're there, the more consistent you become, the better parenting you become. And I love being a parent.
Yeah.
It's the best. And it's my son's my little shadow. My daughter just melts me. And it's one of those things, it's a true joy to work alongside with Allie to be the best parents possible. But we devote a lot of time.
Yeah.
And some people don't have that luxury. I understand that.
Right.
But to be a very consistent parent produces a lot of really awesome results too.
It does. And let me put this I'll put it in the form of a question, but my opinion, I love this profession so much. The coolest thing about this profession, if you're a dentist listening, is you call the shots. Mm-hmm. You choose when to work. You choose where to work. You choose who to hire. You choose what hours. You choose your fees. Nothing limits you from that. And the reason you became a dentist was because you could enjoy the freedom of how to take care of people. Mm-hmm. And really what makes you unhappy is when you start to lose some of that freedom, whether it be self-limiting. You go, oh, I can't do that because my patients only come in the evening.
Right.
And that becomes a curse. That's not true, that you eventually make it true. And so what this really means at the end of the day, I love what you said about your family, is sometimes you don't have to show up. And this is my experience. I would love to tell you I show up every night and it's amazing and I'm totally there and I'm like engaging. 90% of it is just being there. Mm-hmm. You know what? There are times when I have 4 kids and my wife, I don't have to say a thing. You just got to let happen whatever happens. Sure. You know what I mean? I'm not controlling the conversation. Sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm just there, just going, what's up? What's going on? All right, what do you need me to do? All right, I got this. I'll start dinner. Let me get the grill going. Do you know what I mean?
It's the best.
And I think the key is that we live in America. This is dentistry. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool, and I hope if you're listening to this podcast, is that when it comes to consistency, I think about this. Like it's about being there. So, you know, when you think about your favorite family members, favorite people you've ever met, they weren't like incredibly dynamic. They were just the same. You knew what to expect.
That's it.
Yeah. It was, it was a series of actions or a series of regular disciplines and all that kind of stuff.
But yeah, just showing up, like you said. I mean, there's days when I come home. I mean, just last week, I was exhausted. Yeah. I was so tired for some reason. And it was one of those things that came back and all of a sudden I open the door and I'm kind of like low energy and my son runs up to me and says, Dad, I missed you. And like all of a sudden, it's just like, it was the first time he ever said it to me. And it just like re-energizes everything. Right. Sometimes just being there, you get the energy from other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to give the energy too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, my wife and I talk about that a lot of times. A lot of times it's not 50-50. Right. Sometimes you're drained and you can only give 25%.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, all right, I got your 75. You know, and then, or sometimes you're both like, I got 25, you got 25. And we're just going to recognize that today we're only going to hit 50%.
Right.
We're going to lower our bar of expectations what the day is. We're going to get through it on 50%.
Amen.
And that's okay. That's what a partnership's for.
Yeah. So wrap this up in a bow. Give us some final thoughts on the last 6 months and how important consistency is in each one of these buckets.
It's changed everything. And I think it's one of the most important ideas that you can really wrap your head around. And if you're struggling with something, I think you just kind of have a little bit of a vision saying, where do I want to go in a short amount of time? I mean, you can do a lot in 6 months. And if you have that vision, then all of a sudden you can start peeling back ideas of how to get there. And that's the path. And if you know the path, then it's just starting to stay consistent with it and surround yourself with people that hold you accountable. You know, I have my team that expects a meeting every Tuesday. I have my wife that expects me to be there. You know, I have my trainer that's expecting me to log the food and workouts and whatever it has to be. And if there's something that's off, they're going to call you out because they want what's best for them and you and everything like that. And it's this community that you're building around you that keeps you going forward. And that's why I like this stuff, because I can speak to somebody out there and hopefully resonate with them, and they can recognize that I'm human. I've messed up. I've got myself better in 6 months. I've got myself better in 3 years, you know, and I'm not going to shy away from this idea of perfection, because that's what I also don't like is when you're on social media platforms and someone posts something about their life and, you know, it's sometimes fake. You know, even when I started sharing this stuff about the burnout and depression, I had a lot of people behind the scenes messaging me saying, thanks for doing this. Yeah. I've been having this issue for a long time. You realize on their social feed, you would have no idea. And that's a very lonely thing when you're looking and comparing yourself to other people and you're saying, I'm the only one that's in this. And that's not true.
Yeah.
It isn't. And it's something that we can always seek help. We can always get help. And that's why I called you on a random Tuesday night when I stormed out of my office in scrubs. I said, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know, and I've had several of those phone calls now. And it's something that you pick up every time.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, from the bottom of my heart, you changed my life. You saved me. And so did Zach, and so did Allie. I mean, Bob Margis, people like that are in your corner all the time. And there's a lot more people out there that are in your corner than you realize.
For sure.
Especially the people that have been through it before. And I think that's the huge thing, is just to be open and vulnerable and share people, because then all of a sudden your vulnerability creates more people to be vulnerable too.
Yeah. That's one thing you do extremely well. So appreciate you, brother. So thank you for being here, man.
Happy to be here.
Tomorrow we're going to have even more fun. We're going to learn some more stuff, and then you're going to come back in 6 months and share with us the new learning and the new layers. But
I hope the email thing works out. I just shared that because I just did it.
Hey, don't worry. You trip and fall. We'll figure this all out together.
We're all learning here, right?
Absolutely. So cool. Well, brother, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. We'll stick around. Always say goodbye to everybody else, but thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. I hope this stuff is helpful. You know, our goal here is to find the best people in the world, like Dr. Kevin Groth, share some thoughts, you know, the journey they've been through, what they're learning, what they're applying right now, so that you could apply it to your life and create a better practice and better life. So keep showing up. We're going to keep bringing it. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.